All right, let's talk about something real. Have you ever felt stuck? Like totally paralyzed by what career to choose? Or maybe you're scrolling through social media and get this weird feeling, wondering if any of it is, real? Well, if that sounds familiar, you're definitely in the right place. Because today, we're not just going to talk about some dusty old philosophy. Nope, we're opening up a practical toolkit, a user's guide, really, for modern life. We're diving into existentialism. And trust me, its ideas might just be what we need to live a little more freely, a little more meaningfully. So let's get into it. So, yeah, does any of that hit home? That feeling of just being completely overwhelmed by a million different life paths? Or that strange disconnect you feel between the person you are online and the person you are, well, right now? You're just going about your day and suddenly it hits you. What is the point of all this? Look, these questions aren't new, but man, they feel so much more intense these days, don't they? And this is exactly where existentialism comes in. It doesn't shy away from these big, scary questions. It tackles them head on. You see, at the absolute core of all these modern anxieties is that one giant question. What's my purpose? Well, for centuries, people have looked everywhere for the answer, right? To religion, to society, to their parents, basically searching for some kind of pre-written script that tells them how to live. But existentialism, it just throws that whole idea out the window and gives us a completely different and honestly a much more empowering answer. Okay, so this brings us to one of the biggest ideas in all of existentialism. It's this phrase, existence precedes essence. I know, it sounds super academic and complicated, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple and kind of revolutionary. So think about it like this. Take a hammer. Before that hammer was ever made, someone had an idea for it, right? They had its essence in mind, its purpose, what it was for. Then they built it. But existentialists say for us humans, it's the complete opposite. We're just born. We exist. That's it. There's no predefined purpose, no built-in function. It's only after we're here, through the choices we make and the things we do, that we start to define who we are. We create our own essence. So let's really nail this down. On one side, you have the traditional way of thinking. This is called essentialism. It's the idea that your purpose, your essence, is already there, defined before you were. Your whole life is just about finding and living up to that preset purpose. It's like you're handed a blueprint at birth and told, okay, build this. But the existentialist view, it flips that whole script. It says, no, you exist first. You show up as a blank slate. Then you get to create your own blueprint through living your life. You are the architect of your own meaning. See the difference? One says you follow the map, the other says you draw it. And Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the giants of this philosophy, he just summed it up so perfectly. He said, man, first of all, exists, encounters himself, surges up in the world, and defines himself afterwards. I mean, just listen to that. It's so active. It captures this idea that we're kind of just thrown into the world. Then we look around, we become aware of ourselves, and then, and this is the key part, choice by choice, action by action, we build who we are. You're not some finished product right out of the box. You're a constant work in progress. And guess what? You're the one holding all the tools. So, if you really take that idea seriously, what does it mean? If there's no script, no grand blueprint handed down from the universe, what are we left with? Well, the answer is something that is both totally thrilling and, let's be honest, a little bit terrifying, and that is absolute radical freedom. And this incredible freedom, it plays out on a stage that the existentialists called the absurd. Now, when they say absurd, they don't mean life is a joke or that it's silly. It's a very specific feeling. It's the clash between two things. One, our deep, burning desire as humans to find meaning and purpose in life. And two, the complete, cold, silent indifference of the universe that gives us nothing. It doesn't offer any answers. You know that feeling? It's like when you're scrolling through Instagram, looking at all these perfect lives, trying to find some clue about what you're supposed to be doing, and all you get back is static. That feeling of disconnect, that tension, that's the absurd. The perfect story to capture this feeling is the old Greek myth of Sisyphus. So this guy, Sisyphus, he's condemned by the gods to do this one thing for all of eternity. He has to push a giant boulder up a steep hill. And every single time he gets to the top, the boulder just rolls all the way back down, and he has to start over, forever. I mean, can you imagine anything more pointless? It really seems like the ultimate symbol of a meaningless struggle. Okay, but let's pull that out of ancient Greece and bring it right here into our world. What's your boulder? Seriously, think about it. Is it that inbox that never seems to empty? Is it the same repetitive tasks you do at your job, day in and day out? That daily grind that feels like you're going nowhere? We all have one. We all have our own version of that Sisyphus struggle, those parts of our lives that just feel absurd and repetitive. All right, so here we are. We're radically free, but we're living in this absurd world. So, what now? How do we even begin to act? Well, before we can make any meaningful choices, we have to get real about the ground we're standing on. And that means we have to start by looking at the things we have absolutely no control over. And there's a word for this: facticity. Again, sounds fancy, but it's dead simple. It's just the facts of your life, the unchangeable stuff. You didn't choose where you were born or when. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't choose the things that happened to you in the past. These are just the raw, brute facts of your existence. Think of it like this. It's the hand of cards you were dealt in the game of life. But here is the absolute most important part of this whole idea. Your facticity, it is not your destiny. Your past is not a prison sentence. So, for example, maybe you were born into a family that didn't have a lot of money. That's a fact. You can't change that. But what you can choose is what that fact means to you. Is it a life sentence that dooms you to always struggle, or is it the fuel that motivates you to build something incredible for yourself? The fact itself doesn't change, but the meaning you give it, that is 100% your choice. And that, right there, is the heart of it all. Living an existential life is all about understanding the stance between your unchangeable circumstances and your absolute freedom. This is where things get tricky, sure, but it's also where we find the real power to create a meaningful life for ourselves. So how do you actually do this? How do you put it into practice? Well, you can think of it as a simple 3-step process. Step 1, acknowledge your facticity. Just get honest with yourself. Look at the facts of your life, the good and the bad, and just accept them for what they are, without judging them. Step 2, recognize your freedom. Realize that no matter what the situation is, no matter how trapped you might feel, you always have the power to choose how you respond. And finally, step 3, embrace responsibility. And this one is the big one. You have to own your choices and their outcomes. No more blaming your circumstances or your past. The meaning you create is on you. Okay, but let's be real. This level of total freedom and total responsibility, it can be pretty overwhelming. That feeling of vertigo you get when you realize there are no guardrails, no safety net, and that you are completely, totally responsible for your own life. Well, that has a name too. It's called existential angst. And it's really important to know that this feeling isn't a sign that there's something wrong with you. Actually, it's a sign that you're getting it, that you understand just how heavy this freedom really is. The philosopher Kierkegaard had this amazing image for it. He said it's like standing at the edge of a cliff. The anxiety you feel isn't just the fear of falling off. It's the fear that comes from knowing you are free to jump. So what happens when we face that angst head-on and really lean into our freedom? Well, it leads us to the ultimate goal here. It leads us to what existentialists call an authentic life. So what is authenticity? In this context, it just means being the true author of your own life. Simple as that. It's about figuring out what you truly value and then having the guts to live by those values, even when it's hard. The opposite of that is living inauthentically. You know, when you're just doing what one should do or what your parents or society expect of you. Sartre had this classic example to explain this. He described a waiter in a cafe who is almost too much of a waiter. His movements are a little too precise, a little too theatrical. He's not just a person doing a job. He's playing the part of a waiter. He's so absorbed in this role that he's basically given up his own freedom to become a thing, like a robot defined by its function. Sartre called this living in bad faith. It's when you pretend you don't have a choice. And if you look around, you'll see this kind of thing everywhere. Anytime we say something like, well, that's just how I am because of my past, or the classic, I have no other choice, we're kind of slipping into that bad faith. When you let your job title or your relationship status or your online profile become your entire identity, you're living inauthentically. You're basically hiding from the enormousness of your own freedom. Okay, so let's circle all the way back to where we started. That career paralysis, how does any of this help? Well, it totally reframes the question. You stop asking, what is the right career for me? And you start asking, what career will I choose to give meaning to? See the shift? The meaning doesn't come from the job, it comes from you. And it's the exact same thing with your online life. The question isn't, is this social media profile the real me? The better question is, am I consciously choosing to create this identity? Am I living it authentically? And this brings us back to our friend Sisyphus and his boulder. Albert Camus, another brilliant existentialist thinker, wrote about him and ended with one of the most famous, most powerful lines in all of philosophy. He says, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." Happy? How could he possibly be happy? Well, Camus says his happiness comes from the moment he fully accepts his fate and chooses to face it. His joy isn't in pushing the rock. It's in his rebellion against the meaninglessness of it all. He finds his own purpose in the struggle. He owns it. So in the end, existentialism doesn't really give you any easy answers. It doesn't tell you what to do. It does something much, much more important. It hands you back the pen. It reminds you that your life is a blank page, an unwritten story, and that you and only you are the author. So I guess the only real question left to ask is, what story are you going to write?